This episode is brought to you by Marqeta. When it comes to your payments provider, you can't afford to compromise. Marqeta's modern payment solutions flex with your business without the trade-offs. Stable and agile, secure and innovative, scalable and configurable. If they say you can't have it all, don't believe them. Your business demands more. Choose a payments provider that delivers more. Choose Marqeta. Visit marqeta.com/Spotify to learn more.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
Welcome back to Cruising. This is Sarah Gabrielli, and today we're talking about an iconic New York lesbian bar. You might have heard of it, Meow Mix. From 1996 to 2004, Meow Mix was one of the most popular lesbian bars in the city. It was founded and run by our guest today, Brooke Webster, who also went on to open Cattyshack, a popular Brooklyn lesbian bar from 2005 to 2009. Throughout this convo, we're going to mention two different lesbian films that I want to quickly brief you on if you don't already know about them. The movie Go Fish, which was basically made by Brooke's friend group back in Chicago in the early 90s. It premiered at Sundance in 1994 and is considered pretty groundbreaking for its positive portrayal of lesbian culture at that time. In 1997, Meow Mix was featured in the cult classic rom-com Chasing Amy, which starred Ben Affleck and was directed by Kevin Smith. Chasing Amy follows a straight man who falls in love with a lesbian, so a little more tropey, very male-gazy. Even outside of these films, I can't stress enough how well-known and highly regarded Meow Mix was back in its heyday. We're going to talk all about that, and Brooke will do a better job of convincing you than I can. By the time this airs, we'll be coming off of an all-weekend-long 30th reunion for Meow Mix, stacked with dance parties and bands just like back in the day. I so unfortunately was not able to go to all of the reunion events because starting that weekend and when this airs, I will be on my very first Olivia trip in Punta Cana, celebrating 35 years of Olivia travel. So be sure to look out for that on socials, check out our Substack companion pieces, and enjoy my interview with Brooke Webster of Meow Mix.
I have an interesting past. It wasn't like I went to college and then moved to New York with a job. I was a very involved activist as a teenager. My parents were sort of activists in their own right, during the Vietnam War. And I saw a lot of sanctuary churches where I grew up on the western border of Chicago at a place called Oak Park. I got in trouble at school because I brought a group of people to get arrested at a demonstration. So there was a protest at the Federal Building. I think the military in El Salvador had carpet bombed a bunch of communities that had women and children. And so we had this protest at the Federal Building when that escalated. And I had organized an organization called Students for Peace and Justice at my high school. And we all left school. So we ditched school and went to this protest and then got arrested. And I was kind of the leader of it. So they put me in school suspension, which was kind of cool that my dad wasn't that upset with me. He was like, well, you shouldn't have done that. You should go to school, but you did it for a good reason. So that was kind of my first activism in high school of just being like, all right, we're going to push the envelope and get a little trouble, but we have to stop what's happening there. Years later, I found out that same organization in a little different of a formation that, after I'd been gone for 10 or 15 years, helped organize some of the first out queer couples to go to homecoming. So I had no idea what I was doing at the time. I was starting something that to me seemed like an emergency, right? It was an emergency that this was happening and people didn't know about it. So super proud of that. My parents weren't proud of me getting arrested. They didn't like that part of it, but I think they were proud of what I did there. So
Yeah, they were like radicals themselves in their own way.
yeah. Yes.
That's
Oh, yeah.
cool.
Radicals in earnest.
Were you out at all in high school?
and I wasn't. So, it was the 80s. So, I told my parents I thought I was in love with my best friend.
Was that like the first time that you'd started feeling that and being like, oh shit?
I always felt like I wasn't like anybody else, right? I always wanted to wear boys' clothes, would argue with my parents since I was a kid. I mean, in the 70s there was Garanimals, so it was a little bit easier to be like a hidden lesbian in that fashion statement of childhood. But I just always knew that I was different. I wanted to learn how to tie a tie with my dad. I played sports. I didn't feel like I really belonged what everyone was supposed to be. I come from an Italian family too, so my cousins of the same age would be pictures of us, and I would be in this one-piece bathing suit, seemingly kind of angry, and they'd both be in bikinis, and they wanted to have all the dolls, and I wanted to like get Star Wars action figures for Christmas. So it was pretty apparent from a young age. So I don't think my parents should have been super surprised, but I think it was a different time period then. But I have a really great dad who told me when I came out to him, and I think I was 15, he was like, I feel really sad that the society doesn't understand you and you will have a harder life, but I'm really proud of you for being who you are. So that was pretty great. My Italian mother, my biological mother, didn't have the same response. I tried to tell her in a moving car while she was driving so she couldn't look directly at me.
And what happened?
She wasn't psyched about it. She would continue to throughout the years to try to like when I'd bring a good friend to a family gathering, even in my early 20s, she would try to act like to the family like that was my boyfriend, right? So I don't think she totally accepted it, but she died pretty young. She died in my early 20s, so she, I think towards the end she did. She would send me different things about activism.
She was like making peace offerings or something?
Yeah, because I had been really involved in ACT UP when I lived in Chicago, so before I moved to New York, and so I think she saw those things and she was like, oh, well, this ACT UP activist was on, Good Morning America or one of those shows that she watched. And so that gave her, it legitimized it for her a little bit. And she tried to reach out to accept it in her little way. Being a Sicilian American, growing up in a big Italian family, she wanted me to be a little bit more like her. But, I had it better than a lot of queer youth, right? Because my dad and my stepmom were so supportive.
Yeah, that's really cool. And how did you get involved in ACT UP?
I mean, I think it was just part of the community, right? So the community was very connected then, whether it was activism or LGBTQ. So somebody from ACT UP, I sure came to one of the El Salvador meetings and said, we're doing this demonstration on this day. And I went, and then I met a whole other community of people through all that work too, which was Guinevere Turner and Rose Trochet. And actually, I think they bailed me out when I got arrested at ACT UP demonstration when we put mattresses. If you know anything about Chicago, there was a lot of attention towards men with HIV, but women weren't getting as much attention. And the county hospital, the only free hospital, Cook County Hospital at the time, didn't have any beds in the AIDS unit for women. And so we did a demonstration. Now, when you're coming into downtown Chicago, it's called IDB Wells Drive now, but it used to be called the Congress. And it's this highway that goes like underneath the Board of Trade, and then all of a sudden you're in downtown Chicago. Well, we shut down that highway with 30 mattresses to represent the beds that we needed for women at Cook County Hospital.
Were there people on the mattresses or you just laid
Yeah, we all got on the mattresses and we blocked traffic during rush hour. We carried those mattresses, we put them down, and we sat on them, and they arrested all of us.
So was it like mattresses across?
Yes, across the whole street to block traffic going either way. So basically, we're like, we're going to shut down business in Chicago until you talk about women having beds. And we did win some beds for women at the Cook County Hospital at that time.
So then how'd you make the move to New York?
I guess that might have been 2021. And we all kind of had, like, myself, Guinevere Turner had already moved back to New York City. These are the women that did Go Fish and many other things. We all were friends in Chicago, a whole group of friends in Chicago. I'm in Go Fish in one of the scenes. I have, I think, one line. We all had things that we wanted to do in New York. So V.S. Brody, Rose, and I, we had like a big U-Haul, and V.S. Brody was on her motorcycle, and we put all of our stuff and moved to New York. And then we all rented a place together in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. It was with Rose and V.S. And we would go around to lesbian parties, and we were known as the Go Fish Girls, the Chicago Go Fish Girls who just got to town.
Wait, so can you tell me about like the making of Go Fish?
Yeah, I mean, it was a real, I helped with one of the benefits to raise money to produce it. That was in Wicker Park. It was a real project of, love and community by Rose and Guinevere at that time. And I was in their friend group. So when I could, I would help fundraise, and they would shoot at different times and we would all volunteer, whether it was like bringing food or being in a scene. It was all shot in a couple neighborhoods in Chicago. And then after we all moved to New York, I remember them going to Sundance. And then while they were at Sundance, looking at the New York Times, it was on the cover of the New York Times that Clerks and Go Fish got picked up by Samuel Goldwyn at the same time. So it was a big victory for some really hardworking young filmmakers who had put everything and then it went big time and launched their careers. While I was still doing work with El Salvador Work, and then I was working for a labor union for a while and sort of watching them become, amazing filmmakers and professionals, all of us partying together throughout the times. And the other part I saw about New York, which is I was like, well, maybe Chicago's a little bit more advanced on the queer tip. I'm not sure, but I felt like everything I wanted to do culturally, music wise, was either if I want to go hear the music I want to hear, I'm in straight spaces. And if I want to be in a gay space, I'm hearing bad techno remixes of pop songs that doesn't really inspire me, right? Doesn't feel sexy, doesn't inspire me. And that to me was the reason for Meow Mix, was let's create something cool that's not this stereotype of what we're supposed to be, but reflects all the art that we all enjoy. And so that was kind of the idea of when it was just one night. It wasn't like I didn't like dance music. Sometimes people like to say Meow Mix was all rock and roll. I think there was a lot of live music and a lot of rock and roll there, but there's a little bit of everything. We played a lot of old school hip hop. We did break beats. We had, every kind of music we could think of we would do there that wasn't just the formulaic gay party music at the time. I had somebody make me a graphic, and I went with my girlfriend at the time, who is my now wife, but we broke up way back then and found each other recently, so that's a crazy story too. But I think it was maybe $10 or $15 the most of flyers. They were like an eighth of a page, so I could save money on it. And I went out for it was every Saturday night at a place called the Far Side, which then became Meow Mix. And the first Saturday we had a line around the block. And the formula kind of was, even though it wasn't formulaic, but we would have bands until 11, live music until 11, and 11 to 4 different DJs. We were lucky enough to have Squeezebox DJ and legendary performer Miss Guy be our first Saturday night DJ, our resident DJ, which was pretty epic. And I was honored to have Miss Guy be involved in anything all those years, and we did a lot of things together.
Tell me about this girlfriend of yours in this iteration. Like, how did you meet? What was the deal back then?
Well, we had met at a party, and I used to manage bands in between my jobs. So I managed a band called Tribe 8. I had been on tour for a long time, coming back to New York.
And that was a lesbian band, right?
Yeah, it was a lesbian punk rock band. And Rebecca, my now wife, then girlfriend, she had a loft, actually with a famous photographer, A.L. Steiner at the time, on Avenue D, that had a service elevator. And of course, everybody in New York, especially the East Village, is like 5-floor walk-ups or not enough room. And we had a van full of their equipment, their amps and everything, that obviously if you left that in the early 90s in a van in the Lower East Side, it'd be gone in like 15 minutes. So she offered to store the stuff in her loft. We brought the stuff up to her loft. We ended up hanging out. I kissed her in the van, and Prince was playing, and then we ended up falling for each other. We're in a really messy turn of events. I ended up becoming her ex's roommate because of just a situation. She had a room. That wasn't the best thing to ever do, but it was very lesbianic that we did that. We were super into each other and in love for a couple of years. And then when I started Meow Mix, she was in grad school at NYU, and I felt like my nightlife schedule wasn't going to work out. And so after a while, I broke up with her. She'll never let me forget this forever. I broke up with her saying, I don't think this is the timing. I'm up till 4 a.m. every night. You're in grad school. And then she hated me for 25 years. We had all these friends in common. At one point, they were filming Chasing Amy, and Kevin Smith goes, "Cut." And he's like, "Brooke, what's that in the shot?" And we turn to the window, and it's her on her bike with my stuff from her apartment in garbage bags, throwing them in the front sidewalk of Meow Mix. So there's a lot of fun, lesbian drama that just was, naturally put into the story.
Oh my God. Okay, well, we're going to get to Chasing Amy, but in between opening Meow Mix, can you sort of break down how it escalated into being a full-time thing from the party? Was it always in the same space?
Yes, yes. I threw other parties in bigger spaces sometimes, but Meow Mix was always in the same space. So the Far Side was owned by this guy who had moved to New York City from Ohio. He became a taxi driver, and he thought, "Oh, I'll just open up a place on the Lower East Side and I'll be busy all the time." So he saved his money, he opened up this place. And then when I offered him to do the Saturday night party, he was super into it. He was like, "Great, because we haven't been busy." And then about 8 months into it, he was like, "I have to get out of the business. I'm not making any money on the other nights." And so we'd been charging $5 at the door. So with that cash that I had saved, because I didn't know what to do with it, I was 22, 23, 24 at the time. So I had no idea how to do this at all. Learned everything the hard way. And so with some cash and some help from a couple people, we bought the rest of the lease. So there was a 10-year lease, and we bought the rest of the lease. And yeah, then I owned a bar all of a sudden. I learned everything the hard way, from how you figure out your cost of goods to what not to do with employees. I'm sure there's some employees out there who think I was a total asshole at different times because I didn't really know what I was doing, but I tried to do every job in the place, and I was also a DJ there.
Yeah, what else do you mean by learning things the hard way? Do you have specific stories?
I mean, leaving a tap handle the wrong way and losing all your air and having to buy new CO2 the next week. Not understanding portion control or, how to run a cash business in terms of making sure that everybody's, being honest and not overpouring. Having we were also the Giuliani years, so we learned by getting tickets. Having an open flame permit. Learning of every single permit that you're supposed to have to be open as a bar.
So in the Giuliani years, were bars heavily policed? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so we were part of the whole sting operation on a constant basis where Giuliani, to clean up New York City, which he more meant getting rid of places like Meow Mix, he started to put together these task force that were multi-unit task force. So fire department, buildings department, to check to see if you're over capacity, or to see if you have your open flame license. So they could always get you on a ticket. It was 5 different agencies, and they would rate us on a Friday or Saturday night. So think about back then where people were more closeted and there was no cameras, and there's 12 men that come into the establishment with flashlights. All of a sudden it kills your busiest night. So you're not making money for those couple hours because they're going to inspect everything and then ticket you. So that's going to take an hour. By that time, if you're out with your girl, you're trying to flirt with some girl, that totally ruins the vibe. So you're going to go somewhere else. Plus all the tickets that we had to fight in court. I mean, it was learning a lot of things the hard way, but also learning a lot of things the hardest time in New York. And then the cabaret laws, so a third of the liquor licenses in Manhattan were in the East Village, Lower East Side at the time. But because of these cabaret laws, you weren't allowed to dance there. And cabaret laws, there were racist laws brought in the 20s and 30s to try to shut down jazz clubs, but then they weren't utilized after that. They were on the books, but nobody actually enforced them until Giuliani. And so he enforced them. If even more than 2 people were dancing, he could ticket us and shut us down for the night.
That could have happened at any bar? Did you have to have a certain license for it?
No, but you couldn't get at that time. Now it's, de Blasio helped do away with all these laws years back, but if you didn't have a cabaret law and it wasn't zoned for cabaret, you weren't supposed to have dancing. Even if you had a jukebox, if more than 2 people were dancing, they could ticket you. It was just an old law that he used in the way to enforce against places he wanted to shut down because he wanted to build, high dollar condos for different developers. He wanted to clean up the East Village to make it expensive, and to be for the ultra rich. And we were part of that cleanup on a regular basis.
That's crazy. So
yeah,
Footloose.
a lot of places were affected by it. A lot of places closed because of it, or didn't open in the first place because what a pain in the ass, right?
Right. And then, so what would you do? Because there's no way that you could control that. There's no way you could stop two people from dancing at these.
Right. So we created, and eventually I became elected to be president of the Chamber of Commerce of the East Village, Lower East Side, because we created a phone list because we weren't the only people, if Click Club or one of the boys bars. So we created a phone list to all the bar owners we knew, and we got together. We created a New York Bar Owners Association where we had a phone list, and if they were in your neighborhood, everybody called the next person, and they had our bouncer's number and everything. And so if they were down the block at the bank, which was a goth club back then, we would get a call from them. Okay, they're here at Houston and Avenue A, or they're here at Second Avenue. And then we would know, and we would like put the music on low. I remember one time this woman yelled at me because I was like, hey, the fire department's about to come in here. Can you everybody stop dancing? And some women didn't understand, and they would get mad at me. This woman, like, you're being a Nazi. You're telling us not to dance. I'm like, I'm trying to get us not shut down. Give me 20 minutes.
Yeah, like, this is crazy. It's not my fault.
That was the time that we lived in back then. It was very much the club life. Nightlife was under attack. And you had to sort of be nimble and try to fight the tickets in court and try to make ends meet of it all. But like, we weren't going to really stop what we were doing because, we're gay people. We have to dance. We have to rock out.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone has to dance also. Like, that's crazy. Can you describe the landscape of the lesbian nightlife scene at that time?
Yeah, so you had Crazy Nannies that had been around for a long time. Cubbyhole, Henrietta's, Click Club on Fridays, Cafe Tabac on Sundays.
And so the niche that Meow Mix filled was like music, live music.
Yeah, live. I think we were the only ones with live music, and we had more of a sort of global music, from punk rock to rock and roll, live music. And then we had Xena Night. We had a lot of just very nuancy nights there.
Yeah. Do you want to like name drop some of the big names that, whether they like performed there or just stopped by at Meow Mix?
I mean, I was the one that flew Sleater Kinney to New York for CMJ, and they were seen by a lot of people. So they played my Fraggle Rock parties, which was a traveling party as well. I had them play a secret show to open for Luscious Jackson. Kate from Luscious Jackson used to DJ with me at Meow Mix. LP bartended there and played there. Courtney Love came in numerous times and gave us her bra that was hanging up at the top of I think there was about 8 bras that were on the ceiling that were from Courtney Love.
8 is crazy.
She used to like to sit downstairs near the pool table, and I'd be like, why is everybody downstairs when the dance floor is going? And I realized that she was sitting in a baby doll dress in the couch with no underwear on, with her legs pretty wide open, and like all the girls were down there.
Oh my God. Can you describe the space physically? Like, what would the experience be like?
Well, kind of outside looked like a dive bar a little bit.
Was it like pretty unassuming? What was it like?
Yeah, we had a sign, and we had the windows blacked out because we didn't want. There was a lot of harassment back then of men wanting to get in or wanting to harass our crowd, and so we had blacked out windows. It was not an open, airy place at all back then because it was really a nightlife place. When you walked in, there was a really old bar. I mean, the basement of this bar had been used during Prohibition. There was tunnels that led. When we saw the architectural plan, there was tunnels that led to many, many different places from the basement of this bar. So it was a really old bar back in the day.
But filled in?
Filled in. You couldn't see where they were. You kind of saw these round etchings that where a door might have been, but it was all brick that we painted. So I don't know. But we saw the plans later on. I think if you look up the address, you can see that it was used in that time to run liquor to different places.
That's so cool.
I mean, it had been a speakeasy at some point. But you walked in, when it was empty, it looked like a small bar. But when it was full, there was a go-go platform right in the middle of the room, and then a bar with old school mirrors, like an old wooden bar, and then a small stage near the bathroom. So legally, we could hold 74 upstairs. We had, 120, 130. You're going to ticket me anyways? We'll keep it safe. We had 2 exits out of the basement, 2 exits out of the top floor. We were totally up to code. And then if you went downstairs, there was a pool table, old school, like video games. So we had like a cocktail table Defender, like Atari Defender. When you walked around the corner, there was different couches and like more loungy area. And eventually we built, the DJ booth was above the bar upstairs. So you would go into this closet, you go some stairs. And so the DJ had a window that you could look upon the crowd. In the beginning, we had to wait for a half hour to change from the bands to the DJ because the DJ was on stage, and then you would lose all that space on stage. Usually what we did was have bands, and then we would put couches up when the bands would load out because there was a fire exit right near the stage. And so if women wanted to dance on the dance floor or they could hang out in the loungy area on stage, there were 2 small bathrooms and they were grandfathered in because of the space was old. So I've never had to replace so many sinks in my life. I think it was almost every weekend the sinks would break because I can tell you it was a very sex positive place. And a lot of regulars from back then will tell you they probably had sex in that bathroom. And put 2 women on a small Lower East Side sink and it's going to break. Keeping it to code where you had some space underneath was constant battle for me. So then when I built the second place that I opened in Brooklyn, Cattyshack, literally said to the contractors, can you put 800 pounds of weight on the sink before you install it? Because I want to make sure, because the sinks were bigger there. And I was like, I want to make sure if a couple people are getting down that this thing is not going to break.
If literally 4 people are having sex at the same time on it.
Hey, you never know. I don't want to challenge anybody, but.
Well, that's the thing. At all the lesbian bars, it's only one person in the bathroom at a time because they know when you have same-sex couples, they're gonna f*** in the bathroom.
Exactly. Well, and I'm excited that it was a sex-positive place because I feel like lesbians back then were seen as so prim and proper and not sex-positive, right? But at the same time, it'd also be like, yo, people are waiting for the bathroom here. It's New York. You have a lot of roommates. I don't know. Maybe you can't go home.
Well, so I read something, and I don't know if this was about Caddyshack or Meow Mix or both, but about trans inclusion in your spaces. No one used the term gender neutral bathroom when the article came out, which was the 90s or early 2000s, but that's essentially what was going on in your spaces, right?
Yeah. So in Caddyshack, when I had the ability, I built what we call gender neutral bathrooms right now. I didn't know what to call it back then. I think I said trans inclusive probably. And we had Meow Mix was known for also letting allies in, which other lesbians bars didn't. I got a lot of flack for that back in the day. There was people that didn't want any men in there, and I felt if we had allies or if somebody's band had, I felt like we should all be together as long as people are respectful and as long as the space, was majority queer women and that vibe was respected. Other times people wanted to protest me because I let men in.
Really? They wanted to, but they didn't?
Well, my response was I'll show up too. Let me know what time you're going to be here and I'll show up with some press to talk about why I do let allies into this bar. So I always was open. If you want to protest me, please do it. Let's have a discussion about it. This is a democracy, right? The bar isn't a democracy, though. It's my business and it belongs to the community. And I need to do what's best to the community in terms of keeping it afloat. And so if I have a night where there's a guy in a band or a lesbian's brother who is respectful wants to come, I think we need to be in that mindset much more because I actually think the more that we interact in different communities, the more we understand each other, right? So we always kept the vibe totally sexy for women, queer women, and trans, but we did not exclude our allies. I used to also tell people, okay, go to the other cool lesbian bar that is exclusively women. That's your choice.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a proven recipe nowadays. Every bar that is successful now has adopted that mindset. That seems to be what works in modern day.
We don't live our lives in a separatist way, but I feel like we were one of the first. I felt proud of being strong to our convictions of not falling into those traps of excluding people for certain reasons, but also supporting the community everybody who came in there. I mean, I hope they felt secure. We had all women bouncers who were very on it. I think that's what most people will tell you, that Linda, who just passed away a couple months ago, unfortunately, Linda and Nancy were the main security people there for most of the years that we were open. Nancy at Cattyshack as well. We tried to make sure that it was safe for everybody. Everybody felt comfortable.
Yeah, and I know that Cubbyhole that's still open, one word, that was Tanya's thing as well, and lesbians protested when they first opened that they were going to let anyone, that she wanted it to be a neighborhood bar, and people were outside protesting it. And look who survived.
Right? They also wanted to protest me for playing Eminem.
EveryPlate is a meal delivery service that makes cooking at home so much easier and way more delicious at a price you'll actually love. No meal planning or stressful trips to the store, just easy recipes and high-quality ingredients delivered to your doorstep. From crispy buffalo ranch chicken to caramelized onion smash burgers, their mouth-watering menu features your favorite restaurant dishes. I know you might be asking yourself, is this going to cost a lot? And the answer is no. EveryPlate is actually cheaper than the grocery store, so you can stick to your budget without any surprises. That's the beauty of their everyday low prices. EveryPlate's pre-portioned ingredients give you exactly what you need, how you need it. The right portions make for less mess, which is a total lifesaver on busy nights when cleanup is the last thing on your list. EveryPlate also helps you get in and out of the kitchen in a flash. Quick cook times and easy-to-follow steps put a family-friendly dinner on the table in 30 minutes or less. No overthinking required. You should know that 97% of customers surveyed say they would recommend EveryPlate to friends and family, and 98% of customers surveyed say EveryPlate reduces the mental load of meal planning and cooking. 98% also say EveryPlate meals are delicious. I've used EveryPlate. I would recommend it, especially living in Brooklyn. It saves me so much time and money to get these ingredients and recipes delivered directly to me. Try EveryPlate and get $1.99 per meal on your first box. Go to everyplate.com/podcast and use code cruising199 to get started. That's code cruising199 at everyplate.com/podcast to get $1.99 per meal on your first box. Save on deliciously easy recipes with EveryPlate.
I turned off news altogether.
I hate to say it, but I don't trust much of anything.
It's the rage bait.
It feels like it's trying to divide people.
If we got clear facts, maybe we can calm down a little.
NBC News brings you clear reporting. Let's meet at the facts. Let's move forward from there. NBC News, reporting for America.
We all love a legendary comeback, and Degree Original Cool Rush is back and better than ever. Cool Rush isn't just a scent, it's a movement, a fan favorite that delivers bold, fresh vibes and all-day sweat protection. Whether you have a man that spends hours in the gym, heads into the office early, or is just trying to stay fresh on a long day, Cool Rush has their back. Head to your local Walmart or Target and grab Degree Cool Rush, the fan favorite scent from the world's #1 antiperspirant brand.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
So tell me how the whole Chasing Amy thing happened. Where did you first hear about the filming?
Because of my friendship with Guinevere Turner, Chasing Amy was basically a movie that came out of the Clerks producer and director and Go Fish meeting each other at Sundance and becoming friends, right? And that movie was written. Not everything happened that in that movie happened in reality, but it was written because of that relationship. And Scott Mosier, the producer, and Kevin Smith reached out to me after Mallrats was like a cult hit, but not in the theaters. It tanked in the theaters. And so when they were going to make Chasing Amy, their budget had been cut. And they were like, we have this scene that we want to make very legitimate or, authentic, I guess would be the word. And, would you be willing to do this? Well, at that time, my speakers had totally blown out. And I was like, well, this is how much I need for a new sound system for the bands. Is this something that we could come to agreement on? Because their bid was a little bit lower than that. So we made an agreement, and part of my job was to get extras. So all those extras are like Meow Mix regulars that are in that scene in the bar, and Guinevere Turner's in that scene as well. I'm in two different parts of the movie where they pan to me, but I don't say anything. That's how it happened. Basically, was the friendship between Go Fish and Clerks makers, and then that movie really being about what I think is somebody from that film team falling in love with a lesbian, who was a really close story to what had happened in terms of friendship between the Clerks and the Go Fish people.
That actually happened with your friends and the
It didn't
chasing
happen.
Amy.
Like they never hooked up. What happens in the story there was that they hook up, but that was a wish of what would happen from the writer, I think. But it was inspired by their friendship.
That's really crazy. I did not know that.
And then Joy Lauren Adams had to hang out at Meow Mix for multiple weekends to research her role.
She had to.
She had to.
And then what did you end up thinking about the film? It's such a crazy trope. It's such a thing to point to.
I didn't really think it was going to go anywhere. When I read it, I was like, well, this is a straight man's fantasy about what happens with his lesbian friend that doesn't actually happen. And no one's going to care about this movie. We need this money for the sound system, and they need a location. So I thought, well, let's do this. And then it became a big movie. I didn't think that it would become a big movie. Not because they're not talented people, but it wasn't a realistic storyline to me.
Right. Or any lesbian.
It's like a dream of the straight man.
Right. So then it appeals to straight people in that way. And then it's still like lesbians are desperate for a film that shows them at all at this time.
Right.
So it still appeals to them.
Oh, totally. That's the thing about it, is that any representation at that time, I mean, when I was young, we would watch anything that was like Chrissy McNichol because she seemed like such a lesbian to me. I'd be like, oh,
No, that's
amazing.
the thing.
It could be the most horrible acting. I'd be like, oh, this is amazing.
If they just seem like a lesbian, like that is
Yes.
the closest that you can get.
If they're just holding hands.
And then, so I know Ellen had a relationship with Meow Mix as well.
Well, her and Anne H would come. So we would always it was funny because there was a lot of nights where because this was before emails or anything like this, where I would get a call and it would be somebody's publicist and say, they're coming tonight. There can be no cameras. So your security has to stop any cameras at the door. We got that with a lot of celebrities. I had to think harder to all of them because it was a constant where there was closeted celebrities that wanted to come, but they didn't want any, photographers. It was very easy to control back then. You can't do that these days. They came multiple times. Sometimes they came with Tracy Chapman and her girlfriends. Tracy Chapman would just ask to DJ with me or with our DJ, be like, can I just go on for an hour? And of course, we weren't going to say no to that. They came multiple times, would drink a lot of margaritas. And then right soon after one of those big things that they announced that she did her coming out thing. And then her episode, I don't know if you remember in her episode, she stops a couple times in front of a big row of Meow Mix in the grocery store when she's talking to her about coming out. And that's a shout out to us. Fran Drescher once said, and I don't know if it was on Letterman or something, she was like, I'm done with men. I'm going to Meow Mix, the Lower East Side. Like, there's a lot of shout outs to us in the media and different things back in the day. Because we had a lot of celebrities, both straight and gay, that would stop by. It was kind of a cool spot to go to because the bands were cool or whoever the performers were. It was also, a place where certain probably straight women celebrities felt like they could go and be safe. I mean, Ione Skye would come. She just reposted our reunion announcement. So we felt pretty blessed that people felt safe to go there.
How did it end up closing if it was so popular and highly regarded?
The owner of the building was this really old Italian guy that I had a great relationship with. I grew up in an Italian family and I had a great relationship with him. He didn't fix everything. I don't think he left the Lower East Side, since he arrived from Italy. He had a stroke and his son took over. And, we had a 10-year lease. When you're in your early 20s and you have a 10-year lease, or you're finishing out a 10-year lease, that seems like a million years, right? It seems like 10 years when you're in your 20s seems like the longest time ever. So all of a sudden, it was about to be almost 10 years. The landlord had a stroke, and the son just didn't. I think he thought he was going to make a lot of money. We had made the address famous, and he thought he was going to take it from us and make a lot of money. And so he tried to do everything to get us out. We tried to get an extension. He had a sewage leak that he didn't fix, and it exploded all over. That was the last straw. It exploded all over the basement, ruined everything. We fought him in court and we couldn't do it anymore. And I'd already signed a lease on a place in Brooklyn that we were building because I was trying to find us a space that was bigger. Also had been like there was only so much money you could make there too. So he wanted to, in the renewal, he wanted to raise our rent like 5 times what we were paying. Now you can't fit any more people in there. So it's like the math doesn't make sense. So I could have signed something with him for this ridiculous rent and we wouldn't be able to survive. So, we're working on building something in Brooklyn that we built from scratch that I wanted to build bigger. And, after the smoking ban too, if you imagine, we were happier about not having smoking in that small space in some level, but imagine all of a sudden for years, people have been smoking in bars. And throughout the night, the cool girl goes out to smoke. She has to put her drink inside, and then 5 girls follow her out. So all of a sudden, where you used to be making a certain amount per person per night, that's down by like 20-25% because people are going outside to smoke every however much, and they can't drink while they're out there, and they can't spend money. So, and then also their target, you have to have more security because they're targets of any harassment on the street. So we were looking for a space where we could have a roof deck, where people could smoke and be outside in a safe way without having to be out in the street. And so he pretty much pushed us out price and then just not fixing anything. And we didn't have the legal funds to battle him over a long period of time. And so that was the end. And we had stayed open longer than most people had stayed open in New York. So we were upset about it. And also at that time, when I opened, the Lower East Side East Village was full of lesbians. I mean, that's how it happens, right? First the artists and the lesbians come, and then the gay men come, and then, it's the gentrification is, I think, what Chappelle says or something. But a lot of the women, queer women and trans folks who had lived in the East Village had moved to Brooklyn. So it was a natural progression. Also, September 11th happened while we were at Meow Mix. We were very close to where September 11th happened. In fact, I like to call it our straight night. A lot of Mondays we had straight bands play and like open mics where everybody could play. And there was a band called The Bullies who played a lot, and they were all firemen, and most of them lost their lives, So we were super affected by September 11th by being that close to it in terms of the air quality. And we had to shut down during that time pretty much because you could only have an ID that said you lived in that couple block radius. And most New Yorkers at that time didn't even have in-state IDs, right? And so Brooklyn was the natural progression. It took us a long time to build that from scratch.
Yeah. So tell me about the space of Cattyshack, like what you were sort of renovating.
So
and, yeah.
I was, my dream was, and it was my first renovation project, my dream was to have a space that was bigger because we were always having a line. And then I thought, well, back then we called Park Slope Dyke Slope. So this would be a perfect area. And we found a space on 4th Avenue. 5th Avenue was way too expensive, but we found a space on 4th Avenue, a block away from the F train. So it was an old auto mechanic space. But we built like a really fun, like dark dance floor downstairs. You'd walk in, there was a pool table. And then the back, huge DJ booth. We had a go-go pole at the end of the bar that we had, had the dancers like Maine and different well-known dancers and burlesque stars come in and test it out while the contractors were building it. We built like the ultimate place. Upstairs had 2 other rooms with like one smaller dance floor, another lounge, and a huge roof deck. And, I'm actually not a cat person, but I wanted to keep on the same theme.
Is it all like a pussy reference?
Yeah, it was like a women reference. I'm actually really allergic to cats, and I was attacked by a cat when I was a child. So my wife laughs at me that I have all these cat references. But no, it was more of like Meow Mix. It was like we want a mix of all these cool cats. We want it to be welcoming to everybody. We want everybody's musical taste to be represented. And then Cattyshack, I was a golf caddy from the time I was 12. I was the first girl golf caddy at a private club that I could ride my bike to from where I grew up.
Was that a big like glass ceiling moment for you?
Yeah. I mean, first they told me I couldn't work there. Then, thank God, I have a very forceful Italian grandfather who went in with me and he said, "You're going to give her a job."
Because you really wanted to work there or something? Or what was that about?
Yeah, I wanted to make money. Like, I saw how much money other golf caddies, like, on my block were making every summer, and I wanted to make money. And my family didn't. If I wanted to go to a concert or something, my family didn't have a lot of money. So if I wanted to do that stuff, and I grew up in a place where other families definitely did have the money to do that. So I was like, let me do this. My grandfather was somebody who was really good at fixing clubs and had some like little contracts with county places where he would be the person who helped fix the clubs or ran the pro shops. And so I thought this is the best way I can make the most money, keep in shape. So I had to ride my bike there like 3.5 miles each way and carry heavy golf cart and learn the game in a way. So obviously I love that movie Caddyshack. Like as a caddy, you go through all this stuff that's ridiculous and crazy. As a girl caddy, I went through a lot more of it. I was harassed. I was made fun of. I was told I couldn't do certain things. To me, when people tell me I can't do something, that's when I want to do it even more. It's kind of a problem. I have to say, to this day, is one of the best jobs I ever had. I mean, I rode my bike and I worked on this beautiful golf course every day, and I got to know how business worked. I learned a lot at that job, and that's why I named it Cat. I thought it'd be funny to have the play on words with cats and Cattyshack.
Yeah, I think it's a great name. I think both of your names have been great. They just like roll off the tongue so good.
Thank you.
And I'm a cat lover also, so that helps for me.
Yeah.
How long was it open as Caddyshack?
I think it was 4 years.
And it's like this big multi-level space.
It was a queer women's playground for sure.
At least it seems to me anecdotally that it was like wildly popular still.
Yeah, no, it was super popular during the weekends, but we didn't have enough business during the week that, my partners thought it was making enough money. The financial collapse really put us into a bad situation at that time, and we just weren't making enough money, and they wanted to pull the plug and change it to something else. And I was pretty much done at Caddyshack. It'd been 16 years of not sleeping and sort of, it was just at a good time economically to keep a place that big open. It was, all the signs were like, get out of business now. Try to regroup and get out of business. And, for me, go get some sleep after years and years of, I never had a real day off. It was always worrying about something or making sure that the staff was there, or, we got robbed during Caddyshack. We got robbed in a very professional way, which was really scary.
What do you mean?
So we would open early on Sundays. We also showed like NFL Ticket on Sundays, and upstairs we had such a fun thing, which was one of the most fun things I've done. I think was on the roof deck. We had a beer bust, and so it was $15, and we'd have a cute lesbian manning a grill out there, and it was all you could eat barbecue. So we'd have like burgers and dogs and wings, and then all you could drink like Miller High Life or Miller Lite on draft. And the way we made money is because people would get sick of the beer after a while and, have a nice cocktail. This woman named Loa Fahey, who used to work at, or maybe she still does, she worked at the Food Network. She was our weekend upstairs bartender, and she was when cocktail programs that had like really in-depth cocktails were first coming into style. And so she would bring whatever leftover ingredients that they were going to throw away at some of the Food Network shows and make cocktails with it all weekend. So people would buy a wristband. We'd have a DJ up there. People would be hanging out on the deck. The cute lesbian that would work the grill would get tipped, her tip jar would be full because, people would be excited just to be able to like sit and be able to eat a burger here. And it would get packed.
So fun.
New York was a place you can do that. Not all states you can have a beer bust. So I learned that later on. We'd be packed on Fridays and Saturday nights. So Sunday mornings, my bartender would come in at 10:30 to set up, right? And the other bartenders would have left around 5:30. And I get this call from my bartender. Her name was Crystal. She was tiny. And she was like, Brooke, it's weird. I just opened the front door and the safe is on the ground in the middle of the floor. And I realized, oh, wow, we're getting robbed like right now. And I just told her, don't worry about it, get out of there. And I called the police. So they had broken through. It was a professional job. They'd obviously been casing us for weeks to see when we'd have the most money, which would be Sunday, right? Because we wouldn't be able to make the deposit on Sunday. And there was a window between when somebody was there, like maybe 45 minutes, an hour, because the cleaning crew would come in. So they were still in the building upstairs when she was in the building. They didn't catch them, but they took every single TV. And it was really sad because that was the height of like the beginning of L Word, and we would show the L Word at night. They took every single TV in the place. They tried to get the safe. They took a bunch of our sound system. I mean, it was like tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage. They broke in through a parking lot in the back and broke windows. I mean, it was a super professional job. I was just happy that my bartender was safe. People showed up for L Word that night. We couldn't show it. We couldn't get TVs that fast. We had paid theft insurance that didn't hardly cover anything. We had paid theft insurance the whole time. It's just something that happens to you when you're in small business, that you can get robbed. And the insurance companies, when you really need them, they don't necessarily come through. So there was many setbacks where you just are like, can I do this anymore? Is this, something that's good for my health and to deal with the hours? And, at that time, there was a lot of queer women and trans folks that get in a relationship and they didn't go out again, right? So I think it was a different model than that maybe we needed like a restaurant.
And so now you're working as a sommelier. You're back in Chicago, right?
I live in the house that I grew up in. It's a fixer-upper with my wife, Rebecca, and our dog, Clyde. And she's from Puerto Rico originally, so we spend some time there in the winter.
Okay, so how did you two come back together? Tell me the whole story.
A friend that had been a friend to both of us, but really her best friend, Professor Jose Munoz, who was a big part of the actually Meow Mix scene and a lot of scenes in New York because he was the head of the performance studies department at NYU. He passed away, and I remember feeling really sad about him passing away, but also really sad for Rebecca because I knew that was her best friend. And so I reached out to her on Facebook saying, I'm in town. I know you're coming to town for his funeral. I just want to let you know that I'm really sorry for your loss, and I know this is a big deal. And if you don't want to hear from me, I totally understand. And that was the first time she responded, that we had talked. Then the next time I think we talked, which was I was getting married in Martha's Vineyard, and she said congratulations on Facebook Messenger, which I guess I was shocked about too, because she really hated me for a couple of decades there, and she can tell you a great story of how deeply and how long she hated me for. But with great hate comes great passion, right? So then we both had to move back to she had moved back to Puerto Rico to take care of her mother when she was sick, and I moved back to Chicago to take care of my mother when she was sick. So we kind of had that in common, and we started talking here and there. And then her mom died, and then my mom died, and we both reached out to each other. And then Hurricane Maria happened. And I remember thinking I was so worried about her, but still really innocently, just more like this is a person in your life that you cared about. And then we started talking on Messenger all the time. And then she finally would give me her phone number. And we started talking on WhatsApp all the time, like teenagers. But talking, nothing, but I felt like I was a teenager again. Like my phone bill was huge and, that kind of thing. She had lost her job because of Hurricane Maria. She was working at school. And I think January of 2017, I was like, well, you still don't have electricity. I travel a lot and I'm in this 4-bedroom house. If you need to use a room while you get on your feet again, you have a master's in translation. I'm sure there's something you can do in Chicago. She got here during the winter. I was working for City Winery. I got sent a week after she got here. I got sent to Puerto Rico to help rebuild farms with a food project with my job. And so she was basically in my house, and a very short time till we realized our attraction was crazy for each other. And then we didn't want to mess it up. So we didn't tell anybody for a little while because we didn't want it to be, big news in New York because it was a very public breakup. And then we realized that we were soulmates, that we had that connection back then, but that wasn't our time. And we got married in October of 2022.
Well, congratulations on your happy love story.
Thank you.
The last thing I wanted to know about is just like how this reunion came about. Why right now, and how did that happen?
Well, so two things. One is there's a wine bar owner, lesbian, who has 2 wine bars in Boston. And I know her through the business. Through the wine business, she kept on saying, oh my God, you're Brooke Webster from Meow Mix, blah, blah, blah. And I was always like, yeah, it's not that big a deal. And she ended up telling me her story about how, Meow Mix means different things to different people, right? So for her, she would come every weekend from Boston. I don't know if she was in college or something, but she would get no sleep by coming on the Chinatown bus. And then she would hang out at Meow Mix all weekend and then go back. And so last summer, she asked if she could do a tribute party to Meow Mix at her wine bar that's just called, she has one called Natalie. It's all women winemakers. It's near Fenway. If you're in Boston, you should definitely check it out. And then she has another wine bar called Haley Henry. They're both amazing, amazing small plates, amazing team. And they did a tribute last summer that was so fun. And people showed up that had been at Meow Mix, that had not been at Meow Mix, and it meant a lot to them. And I was talking to Alice, and I was like, it's been 30 years since I opened Meow Mix. And things seem so dismal right now, and we need to remember those times where it did seem dismal to us then, living through the Giuliani years. And it's more important right now to get together as ever, right? To be proud of who we are. For us, this is a fundraiser. So any profit that is made, after we obviously pay artists and expenses, the money's going to go to the Lesbian Her Story Archives and the New York City Oral Trans Project, because I feel like our history has always not been told in full. And for me, that's the most important thing, is that we are preserving that history so that it can be passed down in the correct way. And that's something that you're doing as well.
Yeah, thank you. And that's really cool.
You know, things happen when we get together. And I think we really need this right now. I think people really need this, and we need to sort of preserve that history. And also, I'm excited to meet the young people like you who are also doing things in the community to re-inspire, to be like, hey man, $15 in flyers, sometimes you can start something really great, and you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. I made a ton of mistakes. But I'd rather make mistakes than not do things at all.
Thanks for listening to Cruising. If you like this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. It really helps others discover our podcast. Cruising is produced by a small but mighty team of 3 queer women, Rachel Karp, Jen McGinnity, and me, your host and editor, Sarah Gabrielli. Our theme song is by Joey Freeman. You can support us at buymeacoffee.com/cruisingpod. Follow us on social media at cruisingpod, on Substack, cruising.substack.com, and at our website, www.cruisingpod.com.
Hi there, Fred Greenhalgh here, director of audio dramas like DC High Volume Batman and Star Trek Con. However, my one true love remains all things spooky, and I'm excited to say there's a new season of my horror podcast, Undertow. This season is called Familiar Haunts, standalone horror tales that reveal how the past is never truly gone, and humanity may be the most ruthless monster of them all. Here's a sample from the first episode about a man who returns to the house he grew up in after receiving a creepy voicemail from his mother. Let's hear it, shall we?
Mike, help me. I'm not alone in here. I'm not alone. She's walking. She's walking toward me.
Hear the rest by listening to Familiar Haunts, available on Undertow. Subscribe to Undertow wherever you get your podcasts, such as the app you're listening to me right now. In addition to the weekly releases of Familiar Haunts, we have 11 previous seasons with everything from werewolf tales to underwater monsters and creepy reincarnated twins. So get your spooky fix by subscribing to Undertow.
Welcome and enter if you dare. Hi, I'm Hallie Keeper.
And I'm Allison Leiby. And together, we're the hosts of Ruined, a scary movie podcast where Hallie tells me the grisly details of a haunting new horror film each week.
Whether you're a terror hound like me or a scaredy cat like Allison, we've got so many thrills, chills, and obviously kills to share with you in every episode.
It's the podcast that'll have you saying, that was so funny. I should not have listened to it at night with all the lights off.
From the greats like The Exorcist and Poltergeist to modern classics such as Hereditary and Get Out to the freakiest new releases like A Quiet Place and Terrifier, we ruin them all and we'll leave you howling, mostly from laughter, sometimes because you're turning into a werewolf.
Ooh. Listen along as I try and guess the movie's twist, predict who will survive, and answer the hardest question of all. What would you do?
So please listen to new episodes of Ruined every Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And whatever you do, we're begging you, please
keep it spooky.